Releasing Trauma is sponsored by the Global Association for Trauma Recovery. The Global Association for Trauma Recovery is a social impact organization serving as a resource for survivors and their families, dedicated to facilitating change by spreading trauma-related awareness and thus creating a more trauma-informed world. Learn more at gaftr.org. Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or a survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Tracy Osborne, and with me today is Rosie Mankes. We are going to be talking about recovering from the trauma of a double mastectomy. So Rosie, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking with us about this. It's a very important but delicate issue.
Yes, absolutely. Very personal.
Very personal, very. So, if you could, we always like to start out with having our guests tell us a little bit about their story.
Okay. So I am a two-time cancer survivor, actually. I had 10% of my right lung removed in 2008 from a stage 1A lung cancer. And then in 2015, I was diagnosed with a stage 0 breast cancer, but I tested positive for the breast cancer gene. So the recommendation was that I have a double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery, which took place in 2016. I'm also a life coach and a speaker and an author of a book, Find Your Joy and Run With It, which actually speaks directly about the breast cancer year and some of the very significant things that happened to me that year.
Well, I'm so glad that you are a survivor. That is fantastic news, because otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you today. So, that is a great deal. I've never been through cancer myself, so I cannot, I can't relate to what it's like. I know what it's like losing somebody from it. I watched my dad go, but when you first get that diagnosis, what goes through your mind? I would imagine absolute fear.
Yes, absolutely. So, I will say, having had both lung and breast cancer, that lung cancer, of course, is extremely difficult surgery. It's it was the first time in my life that I was completely incapable of taking care of myself. And that happened when I was 44, because essentially they have to crack and spread your ribs to get to your lung to be able to remove the cancer site. But with regard to breast cancer, it's just a very personal kind of thing. When you first see, or I should say, when I first saw myself and my breasts were no longer there, it was a very, very traumatic thing for me. But the other thing is that when you see your breasts when you get out of the shower, you don't see your lungs. And, it's part of your feminine identity. It's there's a whole host of things that go along with that kind of a surgery. And as I mentioned, it's just very, very personal to have your breasts removed.
Yeah, I was going to ask, I've heard others talk about how at first it made them feel less feminine, less of a woman, because that is such a part of our feminine identity. Yeah. Until they really realize that, it doesn't make them less feminine. It doesn't make them less of a woman. It's just something they have to kind of overcome and come to terms with. What was that process like for you? How did you come to terms with it?
So I had a very difficult year that year. It was three things that happened to me. It was, as we mentioned, the breast cancer and the mastectomy and reconstructive surgery. But during that time, we also had to transition my mom into an assisted living facility due to the progression of her dementia. And she was so fearful and was, giving so much pushback because she didn't want to leave the only life she knew, which was living in Brooklyn and moving to a facility in New Jersey. And then just when things were settling down, my 58-year-old brother died in a horrific accident. So when those three things happened, I fell apart. I mean, it was just really difficult. I didn't know how to get out of bed and be me or pretend to be me. And it was just I was in a very deep, despondent place when those three things happened to me.
I can only imagine, nothing like knocking you when you're already down.
Yeah. I mean, to tell you the truth, my friends, when my brother passed away, and that was the last of the three things that happened, they didn't think I was coming back after that one. They thought, how's she going to do this?
It takes a very strong person to be able to bounce back from such hard traumas back to back.
Yeah, exactly. And it was not one thing. Like, you think a lot of times I always used to think big picture, do this one big thing, it'll fix it, that other big thing. It wasn't one big thing. It was just a whole series of small things that when brought together can make you move from this, adversity to emotional wellness.
So, as you started to come out of the darkness, what were some of the things that you did that really helped you to begin to overcome the trauma of everything?
So I had to do like this really deep introspective soul searching to see, what had happened to me and, what I had lost. And essentially, if you think about it, I lost, my mom, not physically, but mentally to this disease, dementia. I lost my brother and I lost my breast. So it was trying to figure out how to get to a place where I can be, whole again. And the way I started it, I mean, I know we all talk about gratitude, we have gratitude journals and little boxes that we put our gratitude in. And I believe wholeheartedly in gratitude because I wear a bracelet. It's called the blessings bracelet. It has 4 beads on it. And every day I acknowledge 4 blessings in my life. But if I wanted to move from this, adversity and despair, I felt that I needed to take it a step further and define what happy was. And so, because I wasn't happy. So one day I sat down and I tried to write down 5 things that that make me happy. And I looked at a blank page, like there wasn't 5 things. I wasn't happy. And I say things, not people, because people in my life continue to make me happy.
Right.
It was just those things you go through your day. So I said, okay, well, take a step back and write a list of 5 things that could make you happy. And I came up with this very basic list. And I'll share with you. So 5 things at that point that I thought could make me happy, and they were very simple, were sitting on the couch with my dog snuggled next to me, feeling the warmth of their bodies, or lighting a candle and turning the lights off to watch it glimmer. Taking a walk around the block because, as I said, I was recovering from major surgery. So that's as far as I could go. Or, sipping that morning beverage and really savoring its taste. And then the other one that I was just watching a sunrise or a sunset. And this list was it was very simple and things that we sometimes tend to ignore. But the thing was, it was a list of things that could make me happy. So like, could I turn it into things that would make me happy? So I turned them into affirmations and I just literally would say them over throughout the day or each day until which point I could just integrate them into my life and feel like I could go move on to another list. But another thing I did was I took a look at things that I gave up during that awful year. And one was that I stopped turning on the radio because I stopped believing in things that could make me happy. And I couldn't even fathom singing along to a song or connecting with lyrics. And then I worked toward integrating music back into my life. starting simple with like songs like from when you were a teenager, when life was simpler,
Right.
like songs like Billy Joel or Jim Croce. And then I went to the fun songs like September by Earth, Wind and Fire. Like everybody jumps up to dance to that one, right? And then I went to the ones where the lyrics spoke directly to me, like Let It Be or Drops of Jupiter by Train, and put them back into my life. And the last thing of that whole part of what I was looking at myself was also looking at my behavior, what I didn't like about my behavior, what I wanted to get back that I had lost during that year, and try to put that back into my life as well.
Did you go through, just like you were talking about looking at your behavior, but your whole lifestyle in general, and, make changes in your lifestyle in general?
When, in terms of when I was trying to get on the better path?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel I'm, well, let's face it. I wasn't eating, I lost 20 pounds. I was down to like 126 pounds. I wasn't speaking. I was just in a really, really bad place.
Yeah.
And I needed to figure out how I could become Rosie again, or even hopefully, I think the best thing that happened to me was when I found meditation, and I thought, oh, my busy brain can never do this. I think a lot of people think that, right? So, and then I 9 people out of 10 I talk to will say that. But then I found this deep level of connectivity that I never imagined could happen. But I think the bigger thing was when I found mindfulness, and when I realized that, like, I had been missing the things that are right in front of us, right? And I call them like I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to miss the beautiful gift of now. And once I found mindfulness, it was a profound shift in my life. It really was. And even with meditation, I think I'm up to 14,000 minutes meditating with Headspace from the time I started this journey.
Wow, that's a lot of meditation. So, what was it like, with your support system after the mastectomy? Were friends and family, were they great in helping you come out of it, and supporting you? Or did you find more like they just didn't know what to say, so they didn't say anything at all?
So I had a great support system in terms of people that rallied around me to help me, between family and friends and my husband and my children. I was very fortunate and blessed that I had that. There are some people, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. It's awkward for them. Breasts are a little awkward for people, right? So,
right.
But generally speaking, I feel like I had a really good support system in terms of, people wanted to cook for me, and people wanted to drive me, because at the time, after you have a bilateral double mastectomy and reconstructive surgery, you have limitations in terms of driving. Right. So there were people that would drive me to my appointments for rechecks with the doctor. So I was very grateful for that level of support that I had, and emotional support as well. That comes more from people that have been in this space, the other women that would reach out to me and share their story. And then when I was able to then do the same for others, I think that's when you start healing, when you can help others that are like in the beginning of their journey, and you could help them to know that they'll get through it, or even answer some very delicate questions that they might have, that they would be, embarrassed to ask the doctor. When you're able to do that kind of help with those people, that's what I think, when you start to turn everybody, I not just myself, but anybody that's in this space, I think that's when it's very cathartic.
Absolutely. I found that, with my traumas, helping other women who have been through domestic abuse or sexual assault, or widows and widowers who have lost their spouses, being able to hold a safe space for them to come and talk to me, and ask questions, vent, whatever they need to do. You're right. It's very cathartic and it's very, very healing.
I agree.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, what it looks like. If any of our listeners who just maybe getting started on their breast cancer journey, or, maybe just diagnosed, or, know somebody, what are some of those first steps that you would recommend that they take?
So for me, what helped me was I like to be in the know, and I didn't want surprises. So I would get up in the middle of the night and write down questions for my doctors. I would, if I was in the shower, I'd jump out of the shower after I was done and write down questions. I felt that as I was prepared, that it would make it easier for me. And some people, it's different with everybody. Some people don't want to know. They don't want to know. It's just too much overload. But for me, the type of personality that I have, I felt I needed to know. I also feel that if you are really struggling, to seek out professional help, whatever that looks like, either a therapist or life coach. I think it's also important to do self-care. If you're angry about it, journal, punch a pillow, or you can meditate or do the mindfulness, the deep breathing. I say also, if you can, to surround yourself with people that, will help you. For my specific journey and my feeling is that a bilateral, mastectomy, otherwise known as a double mastectomy, is not a one-person thing. You need another person to help you with, cleaning of the wounds and dressing and all the things that need to be done. You need an extra set of hands to do that. But, and as I said, surround yourself with your people, but also one of the things that I always like to share, which was a lesson that I learned, is to be very specific. If you're sharing your story that you have breast cancer and that you have to have a double mastectomy with your friends, to be very specific about where you want that information to stay. Because I was not, and I told a couple of people, and unbeknownst to me, they told others. And it turned out to be something that others knew about that I didn't want to be shared. So I like to share that because, it was very upsetting to me that my private story was shared outside of who I wanted to have it known with.
That is very important. And I can imagine how upsetting that would be to find out that all of a sudden everybody knows what's going on and you only wanted a couple people to know. Yeah,
it was something that I feel that I like to share, because you think when you share something that it would be confidential, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case.
Right. And and I'm sure that people weren't sharing to be harmful, but it, not realizing that it is harmful and very upsetting.
Because I'm sorry, I was going to say, when you're in that space, when you're there, you're just, there's just so much going on, and adding that layer on that others that weren't even close to you. No, it's just a hard thing to handle. I'm sorry, you were saying?
Oh, no. I was just going to say, because it is such a personal and very intimate subject. It's not like you want to, it's like, when I was raped, it's not like I wanted the whole world to know, nowadays I don't care, but back when it happened, you don't want news like that spreading. It's very personal. I can definitely agree with when you're telling your support people to make sure that it stays in your circle. What did you do emotionally to kind of help you through those beginning stages?
So, I did seek professional help. It wasn't right away. I actually did it more toward the end when my brother had passed away. At that point, I just kind of like crawled and limped into a therapist's office because I was so broken. I really was so broken. But there was, when the breast cancer diagnosis came, there was a lot of crying, a lot of rocking back and forth in my bed saying, I'm not sure I could do this. It's just, how do you, go on the operating table and take your breasts off? It's just a really, really sad, difficult time for me. And the way that as I said, that I worked it through was not just one big thing. It was just a series of small things that, when brought together, really helped me to process it. And I think, seeing the first time you see yourself without breasts, at least in my experience, was a really traumatic experience.
Yeah.
But then when they start to do the saline fills, because they put these expanders in, after they take the breasts out, at the time of the mastectomy, they put the expanders in, and then you get these saline fills, which actually stretch your skin and create breasts for you. So as you see that process happening, you start to feel, okay, this is a little better and a little better. And then for me, I think when I ended up getting the nipple tattoos, it was something that made me feel finally like a little bit more complete, that I was past that journey, and I felt more complete from that whole process.
I was going to mention nipple tattoos. I've talked to several cancer survivors who've had it done, and I've also talked to tattooists who specialize in it. And I've seen the work, and you can't tell that it's a tattoo. You can't tell. It's incredible. So yeah, I was definitely going to, mention that for some of the listeners, that, there is that option. I mean, it's just come so far from what I've seen and been told. And I've also seen women who don't get the reconstruction and just get like a full, beautiful tattoo over that area. I've seen those too. So there's definitely many options out there for, regaining your sense of self and sense of beauty.
I agree. I mean, honestly, like it's a very personal decision, and some people opt not to do anything, and they put these beautiful tattoos on them. And, and for me personally, I was 52 at the time, and my path was that I did want the reconstructive surgery. So I had the expanders and I had the tattoos, but I can remember I went down to Maryland to a guy that's pretty famous. His name is Vinny. And I remember when he swiveled the chair after he had done the first tattoo and showed me the work, I was like, whoa, woohoo. I was just really felt very, very cool, because it really does. The 3D is just amazing. So, for anybody out there that is considering, I know they have another option. You could do a reconstructed nipple, but it involves taking tissue or whatever from donor sites in other parts of your body. And after, so many biopsies and lumpectomies and then mastectomy and reconstructive surgery, I just didn't want to have to recover from anything. Another thing, I just wanted it to be done. And the reconstructive, those types of things take time, more and more time. And the nipple tattoos were an hour total time, and it was done.
Yeah. I've like I said, I've seen pictures, and it's just incredible. Well, Rosie, thank you so much for coming on and, having the courage and the bravery to come out and share your story with our listeners. I really, truly appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. And thanks for having me on. It's been nice having a conversation with you today.
Absolutely. How can our listeners get in touch with you?
I would say the best place is on my website, www.rosiemankes.com. There'll be information about my life coaching services, but also about my brand new book, which is called Find Your Joy and Run With It. It's available on Amazon, but it's also linked on my website.
Awesome. Fantastic. And listeners, you know the drill. I will have all of Rosie's information in the show notes. If you're listening from one of our partner stations, just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com, pull up Rosie's show. All her contact information and the link to buy her book will be down in her show notes. So, Rosie, again, thank you so much for coming on today.
And thank you. And thank you for the great work you're doing as well.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. And listeners, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you in the next show.